Welcome to Timber&Terra. I'm Glenn, and this is part 2 of this hall floor, and we are ready to put it in. So I have a couple things to figure out that I'll explain later, but the first thing I want to do is put this nose piece, bull nose, in here. So I've cut it to length so it fits just beyond where the baseboard's going to go. But I need to notch it out so it fits over the trim piece there and the trim piece there, which is what these marks are for. So close. So close, yet so far. So what I know here is this actually is a bit too tight on this end, and when I bring this side in, it's going to be even tighter. So instead of notching it out more, I'm just going to angle this just a little bit. So there's an angle here to tilt this back and forth like this, so I'm just going to go maybe 2 degrees. Let's see if this fits any better. Oh, that fits nice. Okay. The other question is, so I don't think I got this quite deep enough because this little lip here needs to ride over here and it's not. Well, as it turns out, I'm glad I didn't cut anything. I made a small piece here to make a measurement by. It was just not making it into that notch. Mellowing that notch there and accounting for that. Now it fits there properly. So the other thing I have to deal with is there's a bit of a gap here. So I need to find, and it's all along here, so probably find some door shims, cedar shingles basically, to sort of make that up so that at least the flooring, when it comes this way, matches up with the same level of this. So I did have some shim stock, some shingles, utility shingles. Narrow on one end, thick on the other. But a couple things. One is I realized that the space that I need to make up is so thin that not all of these are exactly the same. There's really only one that almost comes down to nothing. So I'm going to put tar paper down here anyhow, so actually it works out that 2 thicknesses of tar paper is all the shim that I need. So I am simply going to use that. So I'm going to put that down as a shim and then put the additional tar paper down over that. So I am by no means a flooring installation expert or apprentice or novice or even that. I'm barely a hobbyist. I think I've only put in one other floor like this. But some things that I do know, I think I want to put that bull nose in first. That has a groove here. And normally the groove here on the end of the piece will slip into that and make a nice flush piece here. The problem is, and that would be nice because that would butt up against this. The problem is I don't want to have to nail it this way because it makes it almost you have to go in one way because if the nails go in this way, you have to add pieces on this way, this piece and then this piece, so you have to go in that direction. So I can't reasonably put the tongue in this direction because that means I have to go all the way from there to here, and what I've decided is my first priority is to have this nice and parallel. This is an old house, so if I was to start at that end and come this way, I would probably end up with a floor like this, having to scribe it in at an angle. And since this is probably the most visible joint, I don't want to do that. So this is sort of going to be my datum, my reference point, my starting position. But in order to do that, a couple things. One is I have to put the tongue this way so I can nail going that way. Another thing I have to do is figure out where to start over here. This is only just about 3 feet wide as opposed to that distance, which is 10 or 12 feet or more. So I think I can reasonably do that, meaning bring this back and figure out where my starting position is, put a starter piece there and go that way. So that's the other thing. And then the third thing is with this bullnose that will go over this step, instead of being able to use this tongue, the tongue on the long piece will be facing this way. So I'm going to have a groove, basically a groove facing a groove, just like that. So my solution to that, because that groove is important so that we have a nice flush finish. If this was a traditional hardwood floor, which is unfinished, unsanded, it's not as big a deal because any imperfections, as long as the floor is solid and it's not going to move, the pieces will move, then you just sand it all flat. But this being pre-finished, you really have to have that surface flush. So what I'm going to do is machine out a piece basically that fits between there. So I'll measure the dimensions of that groove, which is basically this tongue times 2. Saw that out on the table saw, and then put that in here, and that will act as a tongue. So with all that said, the first thing I want to do, I figured out there's 2 pieces here that are going to be up against here, and I need to rip the tongue off. I'll rip the tongue off, then I'm going to measure back and figure out where a starter piece over here needs to be so I can start nailing and then go that way, all the way to the front, to the bottom of the other stairs. Over here I have a stud, so I can really yank on it here. And that's what happens when I really yank on it. So, after that minor mishap, I can get it to just under 1/8 of an inch. Meaning, it's supposed to be 36 inches, I can get it just under 36 1/8. So, I'm going to go with it. Right, there was a stud there, so I could push right against the wall, but here there's no stud, so actually I'm gonna bend the drywall a bit. So for the rest of these, I'm wondering if I can simply measure from this nailer at 3 feet 1/8 of an inch. may be wondering why the tar paper. I think either tar paper or rosin paper, which is like a pink color, is even often or always put under hardwood floors. I think its primary purpose is to prevent squeaking. So if you have some movement between the flooring, between two pieces of wood, they won't squeak. So that's what the tar paper is. I didn't have any rosin paper. I had some tar paper that I've had for countless years. So this piece, this bullnose, this edge piece is ready to be put in. One thing I want to make sure is that this piece here, which will be parallel with the top of the stairs here, and this nose piece is relatively square, and I am surprised at how square it is. Being an old house, you're sitting in sort of a new addition. This is the old house, and for trim pieces to be square like this, I'm actually amazed. So I'm going to put this piece in. I have a nailer. I started out with 90 psi and then tested it on a piece, so it does shine a little bit more light. It does just barely go beneath the surface, which is just what I wanted. So this should hold that nose piece down in good shape, but we will have to cover those little holes with some sort of a filler. The other thing I needed to do, because I'm going to have, in order for the tongue to face this way, I'm going to have groove against groove. So I needed to make a piece as it works out. The dimensions on this is kind of nice, 1/4 of an inch thick, and just under a 1/2 inch in width will work. So this should slide in there. Snug but not too tight, and then that'll allow this to go in. Actually, I have another piece that fits snugger than that. See, I tested the pieces that I brought down to the garage where I saw this out. It fits okay in that, but I have another piece which I think might fit a bit more snug. This is in there, but it's not as snug as I'd like. So let's go try again. So this one is about 10/1000ths of an inch thicker. It's basically a lot better. Okay. So then these pieces will slide in like that. Yep. Okay. All right. So the other thing to bear in mind when we put the hardwood floor in is when we start this way, you always want to start with the factory edge. If you cut this off for length rather than the other end, you won't have your groove anymore. So the trim pieces all have to be cut on this end, where this is just going to end level to the other floor, and we'll just put a threshold over it. Obviously the ends there will be hidden, so I'll have to keep that in mind. Then when we get here, this piece actually has a groove in it, even though it's softwood and it's, I don't know how old it is, but it has a groove in there that the same dimensions as the hardwood, so we can use this groove and then cut the trim off that end instead. So this first piece is going to be a little bit tricky because the only reference point I have established is right here. I don't have anything over here because I'm not looking to match up anything on the other end like I am here at the top of the stairs. So all I'm going to do here, I'm going to waste a couple of the longer pieces, which are a bit of a premium because most of the ones in the box are like that, and just eyeball it. That's all I can do. There is, you know, in anything like woodworking, there's always just a little bit of slot where it doesn't have to fit, you know, like pieces of an engine going together. But the better we can get it, the better it is. There is a gap here, which is going to be partially covered by the baseboard, but not nearly enough. So in the end, I'm going to have to put in a piece there, but I'm going to do that after the fact. Well, let me put it square and see what that looks like on the other end. Maybe my eyes are not that good. Yeah, that definitely bends right there at the joint, so having it square here does not look good. So according to that measurement, I wonder if this has a bow to it or something. According to the measurement here, what should be 36 1/8, it's actually 36 and almost a quarter, so it can come out this way. That's what I'll do. Sometimes with woodworking, at least for me, if I have a discrepancy like this where a dimension shows one thing and being square shows another, I'll just split the difference, go halfway. So, and that's about it. So, to make sure this piece does not move when I toenail the finish screw in, I'm going to do the same sort of treatment. Just put a nail, a block there. That is as straight as my eye can tell. So after some more thinking and contemplating, when I eyeballed that, when I put in the spacers that I had over there in that further corner, it was another bend in that. So as much as I thought these were relatively straight, they're not. So I'm going to go with what I have here. That's going to be a nice straight line. This gap on this wall is pretty much consistent. It tapers a little bit this way. This one here has much more of a gap. It's like an inch over here and probably half, maybe 5/8 of an inch over there. But in this little nick of the hallway, I don't think it's going to be noticeable. It will cause a bit of a gap here to open up. So it'll be a relatively narrow gap or tight right here, and then it'll open up maybe 1/8 of an inch, 3/16 of an inch over there. So since this is painted, we'll just cover it with some sort of a filler and paint it. But I think we're finally ready to start actually putting down some boards, some flooring, and it should go fast now that all the prep work is done. So these are the finished screws I have, the GRK number 8s. I don't know if I can use these without drilling a pilot hole. Guess there's one way to find out. The answer is no. Alright, so we're going to drill a pilot hole. The answer is yes. So the first one is all done. I eyeballed it. It turns out there's not going to be quite as much of a wedge as I thought between that second door threshold and there. So that's as good as I'm going to be able to get it. So now it's just a matter of, I have one more course here, maybe two more, before the nail will fit without hitting the wall. So 2 more courses of drilling and screwing, and then we'll be able to go to town a little bit faster. So the first 3 courses are done with the screws toe-nailed in. So now I have room so I can use the nailer. So I have the air compressor set at 90 psi. This will be the first piece that I put in. We'll see if that amount of pressure is appropriate. Huh. I'm not sure that it's shooting out a nail. I don't think it is. Yeah, the anvil is stuck there. I'll have to see if I can push it back. Well, with the air removed, I was able to push the anvil back, and it looks like there's a nail ready to go. Hopefully that'll be enough to make it work. I'm not sure what the issue would have been. Well, there's a nail there, but it's stuck out, so either the pressure's not enough. Okay. Well, I ruined that one. I guess I didn't have it set properly. That's why I used a small piece. Yeah, same issue. That anvil did not retract. I think I'm gonna put a drop of oil in there. Maybe it's just too much resistance. Maybe it needs to be lubricated and it hasn't been. A little 3-in-1 oil, which I've had probably for 30 years. I also turned the air pressure up a little bit because the first nail did not set. Ooh. Came out with a bunch of oil. Nope, that anvil did not retract again. Maybe just a couple more cycles. The nail did set in all the way, so that's a good sign. Oh, look at that! It's set back. I think we're in business. Guess it helps to have it right side too. pieces left on this strip here, and then this section of the hall will be done. The most difficult as far as starting it and trying to match up that piece along with the stairs as well as the threshold to that bedroom. Then we'll go down there. But the story of this first section has barely been the nailer. It's the rental. So I had several issues with it. First, several times the anvil stuck. It wouldn't retract back to take another nail. I lubricated it with some 3-in-1 oil. That seemed to work for a bit, but then it kept hanging up again. So what I ended up doing is I noticed there appeared to be a little bit of a burr, because there's just some dirt there now, right there where the anvil comes out. So I was thinking, well, maybe that's causing it to stick. So I have a set of real small files, because this is probably 1/8 of an inch, 1/16 of an inch width. A regular file wouldn't fit in there, but I did have a set of small ones that thankfully I bought. Haven't used much, but I was able to file off what did appear to be a bit of a burr. Then I used it again. It worked well for a bit. Then I ran out of nails. There were several. This package of nails came from the rental store as well. There were a couple of these loose ones in there, so I'll just use these up. I did that for several times, and it wouldn't work. Several attempts, I should say, but I couldn't get one of these to come out. In fact, there were a couple times where 2 of them were trying to come out. Then I looked at this nail compared to this one, and I noticed there was just the slightest bit difference. You can maybe make out the head width is a little bit different. I didn't really look at the width of the nail. That looks like it could be fractionally different as well. And of course it says on here only use Primatech nails, and these evidently were not. So I put a series, a sleeve of these in, and it worked fine, and it's worked fine ever since. So anyhow, I guess these can be finicky, particularly if they're a rental unit. So let's continue on and get this buttoned up so we can move down here, which should move quite a bit quicker. The other thing that has slowed me down a little bit as I finish this up is there's not enough room between here and the wall for the nailer. Plus, here I can use a nail because I can open the door. Same there with the stairs. So I think this one I know, and maybe even this one, I ended up drilling and screwing like I did at the beginning to put these pieces in. And when I put the next 2 strips in, there's not even enough room for that. So I'm going to have to surface nail them with my finish nailer, and then, you know, get some putty that matches the color of this and just fill that in. So for this next to last piece over here, I notched out there for the framing, which is underneath the trim work. But there's no real place to swing a hammer, so it's all going to be using a pry bar. Get it into the tongue and groove, and to slide it back that way. So this is the method I use to sort of pick out pieces. My goal is to have the ends where they butt up on one another staggered, so we don't have like the joints right next to each other. So you can see, hopefully I've achieved my goal of having the end sort of random. Even that one's probably a bit closer than I'd like. So how I do that is, now I already have this piece defined up to here, but just as an example, if I wanted to put a piece here, I could either put a real short piece and end it right there to sort of break that one. I don't have any other joints, so I measure that, say 10 inches. Or if I wanted a piece up here, somewhere between this joint and this joint, I'd sort of split that in half and call that, say, 27 inches. Then I'd go over here. I have these lined up. This is the pile of real long ones. I just don't have the room here to spread them all out. But if I wanted something 27 inches, then I would just put my tape measure here and say, okay, these two are about 27 inches. Pick one of those, lay it down. And that's what I've done the entire time here, is try to pick out piece lengths that will result in staggered ends. The boxes themselves of hardwood, whether it's engineered flooring, as long as it's natural wood, or solid, they'll be random lengths. Because in the factory, all they do is they're cutting out defects. So if there's a defect in a long piece, they cut it out and make a couple shorter ones. And then mill the ends and the sides, obviously. Alright, so this is the challenging piece. But I still have to start here. My piece, I have enough to end right about there at that corner. So I'm basically going to look for a piece that ends. I don't want to go in here too far, because that means I have to cut out the tongue of another one. So I really was not thinking very well when I put that joint there. I'll probably end it here. But maybe with that so close to the corner, it won't be as eye-catching as something like in the middle of the floor where two joints are real close to each other. So I did decide to use a longer piece. I'd much rather have the joint here than over there. It's just too close. It's close to this one here, but there's quite a separation. So all I have to do is just remove the tongue from here over, so I have it marked. I'll just use my vibratory cutter to do that. So for this piece, I cut the tongue off, but that's not going to be enough. And it looks like it's going to fit tight enough where that was the two options here. One is if it was going to be a rather loose fit and I had enough room, I could sort of angle the edge of this so it will hinge down into the tongue that's on this piece. But that does not appear as though it's going to work. It's too tight. So my other thing is machine the bottom, cut on the table saw the bottom part of this groove. So then instead of slipping into the tongue, it'll just set down over top of it. And then surface nail. So I machined I keep saying machined. I cut the bottom of this groove off on the piece of flooring. I also just put the slightest bevel, about 4 degrees, on this side so that nothing here will catch, and it should wedge in there nice and tight. Perhaps with a bit of persuasion. So I'll have to put it down in and then push it that way to catch the groove. So I've cut this to length, did the same treatment there. I did not bevel this edge because I don't think this fits as tight here. This is going to be a bit more tricky because I have two pieces of trim to go under as well as the one on the end. So close, it's only catching the tongue on this one up against the threshold. I think they call this a 5-in-1 tool. I'm not sure if this is one of the 5 uses. I'm guessing it is. Gently pry apart finish. If you can see it, but the end of that board is right there. So that's where I need to stick my pry bar. Nice and tight here, a little loose here, but when I get down here I'll use the pry bar again to snug that up as much as I can. So this first piece, sort of in the hallway, is a bit unique because I have to go with the finished end there, which is the groove. Over here I'm not going to be able to use the tongue, even though it has the groove here on this one, so this will just slide in like that. But for the rest of these, the tongue of the piece will go to the right, and I'll trim off there to the left underneath the drywall and what will be the baseboard. part went pretty well, went quickly, no major problems. So now I'm here where it's going to take up a bit more time because, you know, like that's not square. That's probably square enough. So the first thing I needed to cut out for was this little thing here. Because I think the floor we took up might have been 2 1/4 or some multiple of that, because this comes very close to that edge, but I did need to notch up just a little bit. And it's pretty messy back there. It's really nothing that's going to be seen. But I will miter that corner a little bit better because there's a gap over there. And I might have to relocate that notch, but I'll do that and come back. Modifications made. It's in there nicely. Again, I probably could have done a better job there, but 'tis what it is. It'll never be noticed, would be my guess. So this next one, hopefully, is the last funky angle. There's a weird angle there, a weird angle here the other way. The edge of this is rounded, or it's softwood, so I can make it rounded. I left it like that, but I'm guessing it's not a square now anyhow. A little bit of a gap in there, but again, it's really tucked in the corner, so I don't think we'll see it. All right, continue on. All right, so this may take the cake as the trickiest. So I'm gonna have to add a narrow piece in here, but I need to figure out how wide it is and if there's any taper. And I have to notch out around this. So what I'm gonna do then is, let's see if this is straight. It is not. Grab a straighter piece. This happens to be about 5 feet, so I was looking for a joint in here somewhere. Just about 5 feet. I can go plus or minus 2 inches, so I'll look for a straighter piece and be back. So first thing I'm going to do is make this parallel. So that is 1 3/8 inches. 1 3/8. So that's how much I have to come back on this. Out of the way. Plus it's a little warm in here. 1 3/8 over here. All right, I'm guessing that will not be my only trip to the garage for some touch-up, but we'll see. All right, there is because this looks like this is just nailed down. There's a nail there, and there's a nail there in my way, so I'll get rid of it. I surprise myself sometimes. It actually fit. Okay. So now the next thing is, before I put this piece in, I got to put this piece in over here. So what I'm going to have to do, yeah, there's a bit of a gap there. So what I'm going to have to do is figure out what this width is, rip it, the length, all that thing. So it looks relatively parallel, but I'll measure it and we'll see. 1 1/8 and 1 inch. 1 inch. And I'm not going to try to bevel that in perfectly. We'll call it 30 5/8. All right, back. I'm going to see if it works. Just sort of set in there. That looks good. Normally I am not that lucky when it comes to fit and finish like that. There's a bit of a gap there, as I mentioned, but it's around the corner. I guess if I had to make some inaccurate cuts, that would be a place to do it. Okay, so we'll take it back apart, fasten this one, and continue on. So the other issue that just noticed, but I'm not going to do anything about it, is there's a bit of a gap there because when I push this against here, I measured an inch and an eighth, but it probably should have been just a whisker thicker. But it's okay. I don't think it'll show up that much. Just be a secret between you and me. Well, it's really tight quarters in here, and I really can't put a place for you to stand that you're just not going to be looking at the back of my head. So I'll finish most of this and come back just as I'm finishing up where the heating unit is, because that's going to be a bit of a challenge. And I've come to the end of the line now where I've done the screws for the last two courses, the screw gun and the drill. So now I'm really left with face nailing. There's just no room for anything else. So, and to cut around the heating unit and all that. So let's finish up. Trying to find where the studs are so I can push against the drywall where there's a stud rather than just bowing the drywall out. This one I have to start cutting out for the pipe. This one fits. That one fits nicely. So I also did cut off the bottom so it'll sort of slide in, because I don't have enough room to make the groove go into the tongue. Well, I think my best choice, because I can slide something down there, is drill and screw again. I just need to get some extensions for these hexagonal bits. These extensions come in really handy. They the same as these. They have a little magnet at the end. It sort of holds the bit in. Not super strong, not like a clip like that, but enough so you can hold it upside down and it doesn't move. Yeah, I guess that could be a problem. Doesn't bring the screw back, the drill back out. Doing it backwards is better. Start the screw. There's just 3 of them. Put these together enough to know what the right way to do it is. As far as I can order, put the top in first, put the bottom in first. This seems to work. These things just rest on the fins and reduce the noise. Open or shut? Open or shut? The next thing to do is the baseboard, and I numbered them as 7, 8, 9. So I'm just going to put that back. I did not put this trim in. I hired a carpenter to do this, and this wall bows a little bit, so to accommodate for that, he cut these almost all the way through, so you could sort of bend this a little bit. But this piece goes in there, and since it has that shadow there, this piece goes on first. Like it might have been glued, but just sort of setting there. Yeah, I don't think there's any stud or wood behind there to nail it to, so we'll just set it in there. anyhow, that's it for this little project. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it.